Hey everyone, this is Riddle Huck or AJ Raven, and I'm back with my reaction review of Penny Dreadful's City of Angels, season number 1, episode number 2, which is titled The Dead Lay Down or something like that. I might be wrong. But anyway, this episode opens a bit later where the previous episode ended, and we have Raul in the hospital. Turns out he's still alive. So Santiago didn't end up killing his own brother. Well, not yet. But anyway, we see that Maria is on her knees and she's praying to Santa Muerte to save her child. And then we have Mateo there and Josephine's there as well. Now, I was able to watch the episode over on the Showtime app. So if you guys have the app, the episodes are available for you to watch earlier than they are compared to when the episode is going to air on the network. I'm not really sure. I think it's going to air in an hour or two on the Showtime channel. But yeah, if you guys have the app, you can get to watch these episodes earlier, just the same way that Starz app ends up releasing Outlander earlier. But coming back to the episode, we have Maria still trying to pray for her son's health. Then we have Luis and Santiago coming to the hospital, and Luis is like, he sees the police officers in front of them, and he's like, Santiago, there's a whole lot of tension going on. They are going to blame you because you're Mexican, so it's better that I go into the hospital alone so that we don't cause some drama. And Santiago is like, no, I won't. I will go from the front door because Lewis is like, if you want to go and meet your family, you should go through the back door. And Santiago said that if I go through the back door now, I will always have to go through the back door. So I'm coming with you. So they move ahead. And the same police officer who has been quite racist towards Santiago over in the precinct is there as well. And he's like, Santiago, why are you here? And Lewis is like, you need to let us pass. And while they're walking, that person ends up spitting in Santiago's face. And Lewis doesn't like that. And he tries to beat the other racist officer up. But Santiago is like, you know what, Lewis, leave it. It's not worth it. So inside the hospital, they end up talking to their commissioner, I guess. That's the commissioner, right? They're higher up. So the commissioner is like, this was a disaster. 4 police officers are dead. And Santiago is like, how many Mexicans are dead? And the commissioner is like, don't even start. So you can see that there's a whole lot of racism going around. And yeah, it's bad. So Lewis is like, Santiago, you need to go and be with your family. I'll just sit here and drink and wait for the doctor to tend to me. And Santiago is like, yeah, okay, I'll go. And while he's going, he sees the dead police officers, and and one of the police officers' dead wife is there, and she's crying. And then Santiago notices that while the dead bodies of the police officers are being treated with respect, the Mexicans that died, and there were a whole lot of Mexicans that died compared to the 4 police officers. They are just thrown into one room without any respect, without nothing. And that really gets to Santiago, which I can understand because it's his people. He knows them. He grew up in the community that these people are from. Then he's talking to the doctor while he's going towards his brother's bed, and the doctor is like, I'm not really sure if Raul is alive, but we are trying to keep him alive on the respirator. So you need to make arrangements. He'll probably end up dying anyway in 2 to 3 days. And Santiago goes ahead and he tries to tell his mother about it. And his mom is like, no, Santiago, I gave birth to Raul. I gave him life. And I know for sure that he is not going to die in this hospital. So Santiago tries to talk some sense into his brother. But also I have to say that the actress who is playing Maria, she is doing an amazing job in the role. So Santiago goes and tells Mateo about Raul dying and they having to plan the arrangements. And Mateo is like, don't start with me. I saw you shooting Raul. So if Raul dies, it's on his blood is on your hands and you won't be a part of this family. And of course, this is a whole lot of pressure for Santiago. He shot his own brother and it's too much. So we get this scene where Santiago is on the stairs. He breaks down on the stairs and he starts crying, and which is like, you know what? I like seeing male characters give us emotion. So they're in the lunchroom, and their commissioner is talking to Luis and Santiago about all of the dangerous racial tensions going on, especially because of James Herkel, I guess his name, or Herschel or something, the person whose family ended up dying in the first episode. And the commissioner is like, "I would like you before this grows into a Mexican uprising. I want you to conclude the Beverly Hill case." And Lewis is like, "Let me get this straight. You want us to conclude it but not solve it?" And commissioner is like, "Yep, I need a Mexican head on a platter, and it can be basically any Mexican. He just needs the case shut." So also I had to know, I noticed that Lewis's bandage is on, like, on his shirt instead of being directly on his arm, and that just looked weird to me. I was like, couldn't a doctor just rip the sleeve off? But anyway, these two are trying to figure out how to tackle the case, and Lewis is like, James Herkel, whatever his name is, he was part of the church. So we should go and check the church that they were a part of. So over at the city hall, I guess, Mr. Townsend is trying to figure out what to do about the situation, because he's like, with all of the racial tensions occurring, his motorway project has stalled, and Magda, who has shapeshifted into his secretary, Magda is like, "No, we can use this opportunity. We can turn this motorway into a symbol of justice for the 4 policemen that died." And yeah, that ends up, yeah, the Townsend ends up agreeing with Magda, and he's like, "You know what? Let's get on with it." So over at so the cult, or whatever religious thing that's going on, it's called Joyful Voices, and Luis and Santiago come there, and they want to talk to, I guess they want to talk to Sister Molly, but she is preparing. Yeah, it's Sister Molly. She is preparing for her song, her sermon, and the police officer is like, "You know what? You can't go in. You can't go and talk to her." And Lewis is like, "Do you want me to come back with a search warrant?" And the police officer is like, or the security guard, not the police officer. The security person is like, "You know what? I'll go. I'll take you to Molly's mother, Adelaide." So while they're walking towards Adelaide's office, Santiago and Luis sees all these people. They are doing the accounting for the church because of all of the donations they get. And I'm like, this does not look right. So Adelaide is a new character we get to see, and she is definitely hiding something. She doesn't really give the answers that Luis and Santiago are looking for. So, because Lewis wants Santiago to go and talk to Molly somehow, he ends up asking Adelaide to show him James' office. And at first, Adelaide is like, I don't want to show the office to you." But Lewis ends up kind of distracting and confusing her, and having her lead him to the office while Santiago is left behind. And at first, I was like, is Santiago going to search Adelaide's office? But that didn't happen. What happened is that Santiago ends up going downstairs, and he sees Molly preparing herself for her sermon. And the curtains rise. She has this, even though she was anxious before the sermon, we see that she is able to compartmentalize her emotions when she's ready. And she ends up singing this song about finding God around the world or something. And while Lewis and Adelaide are in the office, Lewis is like, "Did James have any enemies or anything like that?" And Adelaide is like, "No, we don't know. We don't necessarily socialize with the people that work for us because they might end up getting too attached to us on a personal level." And Lewis is like, "You know what? I'm going to take these accounting books with me." And he also notices that Adelaide isn't really very concerned about the family, James's family, being murdered. So that's a dead giveaway for Lewis that Adelaide is hiding something. So Lewis ends up telling Santiago about the story where the US officers were in a whole lot of trouble with the Arabs coming for them, and a whole lot of their allies were dead. So those, I guess, the 4 US surviving officers ended up using the dead bodies of their allies, and they ended up standing them up around the fort in order to confuse the Arabs and make them feel scared about there being more people than there were. But yeah, it was a weird story. So basically, Lewis tells Santiago that he doesn't trust joyful voices, and that he wants Santiago to go and get information from Molly. So over at the beach, and because it's like 1938, we see men in singlets, and it was something. I want these singlets to come back. But anyway, Dr. Croft is reading Gone with the Wind, and he is on at the beach with his two sons, and they're playing. And he notices Grace, I guess her name's Grace or something. I'm not really sure. I'm still confused about all of the names of the characters that Natalie Dormer is playing. But anyway, she's the mom that comes to Dr. Croft's clinic because her son has asthma. But anyway, Croft goes and talks to her, and he's like, would you like to spend time with us? I am with my sons, and Magda is like, you know what? Yeah, my son can use more friends, and yeah, that happens. So over in the hospital, the nurse tells Mateo that her mother can't keep on kneeling like that because it's unhygienic. And I'm like, nurse, you need to leave, please. But anyway, Mateo has a whole lot of emotions that he's working with, especially because he knows that it was Santiago who shot Raul. So he goes to try and cool off. And while he's there, the same racist officer comes in and he ends up being racist towards Santiago. He's vile towards him. He even attacks him because he says that one of his officer's friends lost his eye, and he ends up pressing Mateo's eyes as well. And he wants Mateo to scream. And I'm like, Mateo, what are you going to do? Why aren't you trying to push him away? And from what I can tell, Rico is part of this gang, and the officers don't really want to mess with him because even the officers are like, Rico, what are you going to do? There's four of us. And Rico is like, well, there's a city of me. So the officers go about their way, and Rico is very impressed with how Mateo didn't scream when the officer was hurting him. And he ends up inviting Mateo part of Rico's gang. And again, with the queer characters, John Logan, where are the queer characters? Penny Dreadful, the first season, had a whole lot of queer characters in there. But we are 2 episodes in and no queer character. I guess one of Magda's personalities is supposed to be queer, but who knows? So they're in the beach, the kids are bonding, and I am like, Dr. Croft, you are leaving your two sons with the creepy child. And yeah, I have a thing about creepy child. I'm like, if you think that a child is creepy in a horror movie, you better like end that kid. So one of Dr. Croft's sons ends up noticing that Magda's son is a bit weird, and basically the same story that Lewis was telling Santiago. The kids are reenacting that with their toys, and Magda's son is like, "Dead people need to lay down; they don't stand up," and yada yada yada, being creepy. So while on the beach, they are talking about Gone with the Wind getting a live movie adaptation, and then that leads to how tough it was for Magda in Berlin. She didn't have any food, so she ended up meeting her now husband because he had food, and she ended up marrying him for protection and security and all of that. So over at Townsend, Mr. Townsend ends up giving this press rally or press interview about how he wants to build the motorway, because again he is positioning the motorway as a symbol of justice, and that because the Mexicans did all of this because they didn't want the motorway to build, well, now the motorway needs to be built because justice needs to be served, and they need to respect the 4 officers that died. So Santiago goes and he tries to talk to Molly. Apparently, she's in this weird hotel or establishment. So he tries to go in. He notices that there are police officers at the door, so he just can't casually walk in. And then he notices some Mexicans bringing in food, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to go in through that. And I was like, you know what, Santiago? That's a good idea. If people are prejudiced and racist towards you or discriminate towards you, use that to your advantage. So he goes in and he notices that Sister Molly is already cleaning dishes in there, and that comes as a surprise to Santiago. But anyway, he approaches her, and then these two have this kind of enjoyable conversation. conversation where he asks Molly about James Herschel, and whether or not they knew him. And she is like, we only went to dinner at his house like 2 years ago, but we don't necessarily spend way too much time with the people in the church because they might end up getting way too personal with us. We want them to have a connection with the church, not us. So, in a sense, that makes sense. So Santiago ends up helping her with the dishes as well. And then Molly's guard, I guess his name is Randolph or something, he comes in and Molly is like, you know what, Randolph, we are just talking. You can go away. So over at Lewis's story arc, we see that he's with his friends. And yeah, the actor in the back on the left over here, he pops up in a whole lot of things. So it was nice to see him. Recently, I watched him in a comedy show called The Other Two. So if you're looking for a queer-centric comedy show, you should check it out. It's quite fun. It has been renewed for a second season. So they're basically trying to figure out what the Nazis are planning in order to infiltrate America. And they noticed the same person who was talking to Townsend about working with Nazis in order to create motorways and giving them a free pass into America and all of that stuff. I think his name was Mr. Gloss or something. So Mr. Gloss is talking to this new person, and Lewis is very interested because he has never seen this young person before. So over at so Lewis says that with the woman friend that he has, he'll follow this young person, while the other two men will follow Mr. Gloss and his guard. And I'm like, ooh, that's dangerous. So over at Mr. Croft's house, he is being intimate with his wife, and basically his wife isn't in the mood, I guess, and she's like, the vibe that she's giving off is the entire thing about just get it over with. So while he's making love to her, he ends up seeing Magda instead of his wife, and he ends up being way too passionate. And it's a weird scene, so you can see that Magda is really on his mind. So after he's done, his wife isn't happy with him because she felt disrespected. She felt embarrassed, and she's like, I'm not a sex worker. I'm your wife, so treat me with more respect. So Santiago and Molly are still talking, and Molly ends up sharing the story about how a woman wanted her to heal her child who was close to dying, and she couldn't do it. And yeah, the story ended up giving Molly a few layers of character. I still don't trust her entirely. So the conversation moves towards Santiago sharing that his brother is in the hospital and his brother's dying, and Molly is like, you should be with your brother, and if you can find grace in yourself, you can help your brother move to the afterlife. And she asks Santiago if he believes in God, and Santiago is like, I don't, and he's not necessarily sure about his religious beliefs. And he also shares with Molly that when he was a kid and when his father was dying, he thought that he ended up seeing Santa Muerte. And Molly is like, why do you think that you didn't see her? Maybe you did, and all of that stuff. So then Adelaide comes in, and of course, she isn't a fan of Santiago talking with Molly, and she is supposed to take Molly somewhere else. And before she leaves, she tells Santiago that if he ever wants to talk to her daughter, he can talk through their lawyer, and she presents him with a card. And before Santiago can grab the card, she throws it to the floor. So Lewis and his woman friend ends up following the young man, and he notices that that young man is basically a chemist, I guess, and he works at the chemical plant. And basically, I guess the Nazis want to hold over the chemical plant. Maybe they want to blow stuff up, and that's alarming. So it's nighttime at the hospital, and Maria is like, you know what? I'm going to Kuchiyose no Jutsu Santa Muerte, and I'm going to ask her to help me. And she takes out her candles and she starts praying. So the two guys that are also friends with Lewis, they are following Mr. Gloss and his guard. And I'm like, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. These two are going to die. And of course they do. So Mr. Gloss's guard, who is, I guess the actor's name is Dominic Sherwood. He's from Shadowhunters, and if you guys don't know, a few years back, he ended up getting into this entire drama because he ended up being caught saying a homophobic slur on an Instagram live that his co-star was doing. It was an entire weird drama thing, and I covered it for the Geek Theory. I link the article down below in the comment section if you guys want to read it. So anyway, Dominic Sherwood ends up killing Lewis's friends, and what's interesting that he goes in and he double taps in order to check to make sure that they're really dead. And I was like, you know what, good thinking. So Maria has been trying to summon Santa Muerte, and it works. Santa Muerte comes in, and you can see that Raul isn't in his bed anymore. And Maria notices this trail of blood, and she follows the trail of trail of blood, and she feels Santa Muerte behind her, and she turns around, but Santa Muerte isn't there. But while she's turning around, there's this other figure in front of her, and I'm not really sure if that's Santa Muerte or if that's supposed to be someone else, maybe Magda. I say this because when Maria turns forward, she notices that Raul is standing in front of her, and Raul is back. He's out of his coma. So either Santa Muerte helped Raul, or Magda helped Raul, because Magda was controlling Raul back in episode number 1. So maybe she still has influence over him, or maybe there's this other demonic being we don't know about. Who knows? But anyway, that was episode number 2 of Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, season number 1. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode down in the comment section below. I am still waiting for more supernatural beings to come to be featured in this series. Like, give me Nazi werewolves, give me Nazi vampires or something, or Nazi zombies even. But yeah, I do think that this series is lacking in the supernatural element. But anyway, let me know what you guys thought. And until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed. I'll see you guys later.